Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll discuss nutrition in plants of class 7th. In this lesson, we'll discuss about nutrition, types of nutrition in plants, photosynthesis, modes of nutrition, saprotropes and parasites, and symbiosis. First, let's see what are nutrients. Nutrients means the essential things, essential components of food which required for our body is known as nutrients. Example, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals are essential components of food which helps in growth and development of living organisms, and they repair damaged parts of living organisms, and they also provide energy to carry out life process. Next, let's see what is nutrition. Nutrition is nothing but it is a process of taking in food by an organism and utilizing that food by the body of an organism is known as nutrition. There are two modes of nutrition. First one, autotropic nutrition. Second one, heterotropic nutrition. Now let's see what is autotropic and what is heterotropic nutrition. Autotropic nutrition means, the word auto means self, tropes means nourishment. Here, organisms which make their own food by using simple components is known as autotropes. Example, plants. Plants prepare their own food by using simple components available in the nature. They do not depend on any other organisms for their food and nutrition. Next, heterotropes. What is meant by heterotropes? The word hetero means other. The organisms which depend on other organisms for their food and nutrition is known as heterotropes. Example for heterotropes are animals. Animals depend on plants for their nutrition. Here is a difference between autotropes and heterotropes. Please go through that. Next, how do plants prepare their own food? What are the necessary conditions required for plants to prepare their own food? Plants prepare their own food by a process called photosynthesis. In this photosynthesis, green leaves of plants capture solar energy and use this energy to synthesize food from carbon dioxide and water. Green leaves of plants contain pigment called chlorophyll, which helps to absorb solar energy. And how do this carbon dioxide enter leaves? Carbon dioxide from air enter leaves through tiny pores present on the surface of leaves. These pores are surrounded by guard cells. These pores are called stomata. Carbon dioxide enters through stomata. Stomata is surrounded by guard cells. Opening and closing of stomata is done by guard cells. Through the pores, carbon dioxide will enter to leaves. Then how do other nutrients and water reaches to leaves? Water and minerals are transported to leaves by vessels. Vessels will pass, vessels are like pipe from root to leaves. All nutrients and water will reaches to leaves from the passage of vessels. Once food is prepared in leaves, that food will again transfer to other parts of plant body through vessels, because in a plant only leaves can prepare food, no other parts can prepare food. So whatever the food prepared in the leaves, that will reach us to other parts of plant body through vessels. But in case of smaller herbs, green stems and branches can also do photosynthesis, and that parts can also prepare food. But this does not happen in all the plants. Only in few herbs this process will take place in stems and branches. Photosynthesis will take place only in the presence of sunlight. So sun is the ultimate source of energy for living organisms. Without solar energy, food cannot be prepared by plants. Along with food, plants will also release oxygen after photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, plants absorb carbon dioxide and gives out oxygen. So all living organisms directly or indirectly depends on plants for food and oxygen. So without photosynthesis, without presence of sunlight and photosynthesis, we cannot imagine our life on earth. Here is an equation of photosynthesis. Look at this equation. Carbon dioxide plus water. In the presence of sunlight is absorbed by green pigment called chlorophyll, will give rise to carbohydrate plus oxygen. Carbohydrates are nothing but glucose or food. Okay, so this is an equation of photosynthesis. So you can look at the picture where you can see stomata, guard cells. Okay, what is the use of stomata and guard cells? Stomata absorb the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide will enter through stomata, and stomata is surrounded by guard cells. Guard cells will help in closing and opening of stomata. Okay, yes. See, once photosynthesis is done, food is stored in the leaves in the form of starch. Starch is also a carbohydrate. Food is stored as starch. How do you test for the presence of starch? How do you know the starch is present in the leaves? See, in order to test starch, we use iodine. See, this you have studied in 6th standard. Iodine test to estimate the presence of carbohydrate or starch. You have observed many leaves which are not in green color. They are in red color or brown color. Do that leaves conduct photosynthesis, or only green leaves will conduct photosynthesis? Yes, those leaves which are in green, which are not in green, which are in red or brown color, they also conduct photosynthesis. They also prepare their own food. That other pigments will also helps in the photosynthesis. Okay, yes. Next is algae. See, what is meant by algae? Algae is green color patches which you see on ponds or in the stagnant water bodies. See, this green color algae also contain chlorophyll, and these algae will also prepare their own food and releases oxygen by the process called photosynthesis. Next, synthesis of plant food other than carbohydrates. What are other nutrients? What are other components prepared by plants other than carbohydrates? See, plant food is also contains proteins, vitamins and fats too. Proteins are nitrogenous compounds. Proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are nitrogenous compounds. Where do these plants get nitrogen? See, we already studied in our lower classes that plants require nitrogen for their growth. Nitrogen is present abundantly in air, but plants cannot absorb nitrogen directly by leaves or by roots. Okay, for that they require some other organisms help in order to absorb nitrogen. For this, some bacteria such as rhizobium bacteria help plants in order to absorb nitrogen. See, this rhizobium bacteria present at root nodules of plants. So this enhance the nitrogen content in soil, which can be absorbed by plants easily. Okay, and also the fertilizers what we use for plants, that also contains nitrogen. So plant can absorb nitrogen through fertilizers and prepare proteins and vitamins. Next, other modes of nutrition in plants. See, we have studied plants are autotrophs. They prepare their own food. But this is not applicable for all plants. There are some plants which do not produce their own food. They depend on other plants for their food and nutrition in heterotrophic mode. So there are some examples for heterotrophic plants. Parasites and insectivorous plants are heterotrophic plants. First, let's see parasites. See, what is meant by parasites? Parasites means these are the organisms which depends on other organisms completely for their food and shelter, is known as parasites. See here, parasitic plants means they do not produce their own food. They do not contain chlorophyll in them. So they do not produce their food. They depend on other plants for their nutrition and shelter. These are called parasite plants. Example for this parasite plants is Cascata. Cascata is a good example for parasitic plant where it climb on stem and branches of host plant to absorb valuable nutrients from host plant. What is meant by host plant? Host plant means the plant on which parasite depends. Understood? The plant on which parasite absorb their nutrients is known as host plant. Okay. See, not only plants, even some worms and insects are parasites. For example, tapeworm, leeches, lice. Okay, they are all parasites. They depend on human beings for their food and nutrition. Okay. Yes. Next is insectivorous plants. See, the name insectivorous is saying that these plants are depending on insects for their nutrition. Understood? Yes, you heard right. Some plants depends on insects to absorb nutrition. Understood? These plants trap insects and digest them. Okay, they have ability to digest them inside their system. Understood? Is it really so? Do all plants will do this? No, only insectivorous plants can depend on insects for their nutrition. Let's see one example of insectivorous plant. Here is a picture of insectivorous plant. This is called pitcher plant. See, you can see pitcher plant. It look like pitcher or a jug-like structure, isn't it? You can see a jug-like or a sack-like structure. See, this structure is a modified part of leaf. Okay, it is a modified part of leaf. The apex of leaf, you can see apex of leaves, it forms a lid. Okay, closing and opening. Understood? See, lid is used to closing and opening of that jug-like structure, that sack. Understood? This sac is a very deep cavity. It contains air-like projection, small hair-like projection directed downwards. Okay, once insect trap inside the pitcher plant, lid will get closed and insect is digested by digestive juice produced by pitcher plant. See, once digestion is done, nutrients are absorbed by that plant such as phosphorus and nitrogen. Nitrogen and phosphorus are the nutrients absorbed by insect by the pitcher plant. This is how the nutrition mode in insectivorous plants. These are insect eating plants. See, you can look at the picture. Insectivorous plants are also in green color. Do these insectivorous plants perform photosynthesis? Yes, they do perform photosynthesis and produce their food, but still they depend on insects. Why? Because soil where they grow is less in nitrogen. The soil do not contain nitrogen. So in order to get nitrogen, they are depending on insects. Understood? Because of lack of nitrogen in the soil, these insectivorous plants or pitcher plant is depending on insects for nitrogen. Yes, this is about insectivorous and parasites. Now let's move on to another mode of nutrition, that is saprotropic nutrition. See, the organisms which undergo the saprotropic nutrition is called saprotropes. Okay. So now let's see what is saprotropes and what is saprotropic nutrition. The organisms which depend on dead and decaying matter for their nutrition is known as saprotropic nutrition. Such organisms are called saprotropes. Example for the saprotropes are fungi. Okay, see, I think you have seen fungi grown on bread, moist bread Okay, moist bread, if you keep it for long time, it will you can see some green color patches or white color patches on that bread. That is known as fungi. And also pickles, if you keep it open, if pickles will come in contact with air and moisture, then that upon that pickles also we can observe this fungi. See, fungi will grow on dead and decaying matter. Especially we see this fungus in winter season or in a wet climate. Understood? See, we can see this fungus growing excessively in winter season or in the rainy season. In the wet condition, the fungi will grow excessively. Understood? See, and also you have seen mushrooms, isn't it? Mushrooms are also type of fungi. They grow on wet rotting wood. Okay, we can see that mushroom on wet rotting wood and also on moist soil. Okay, why do this fungi grow on only moist places? Because spores of fungi is present in the air which landed on any of the warm or wet places and they'll start growing. Understood? See, they require necessary condition. In dry places, fungus will not grow. Next, symbiosis. What is meant by symbiosis? Here, some organisms live together and they share both shelter and nutrients. Understood? See here, two organisms live together. They are depending on each other for their shelter and nutrients. Example for this process, the certain type of fungus live inside the roots of plants. Okay, see, they provide, that fungus will provide nutrients to plant, and that plant in turn provide food and shelter for that fungus. Here, fungus and plant are in symbiosis. They are depending on each other for their food and nutrients. Understood? See here, plant provide food for fungus and fungus provides water and certain nutrients to the plant. This process is called symbiosis. This kind of relation is called symbiosis. Understood? Next is replenishment of nutrients in soil. How do soil replenish the nutrients? See, we all know that plants require nitrogen for their growth. Nitrogen are ultimate source for plant in order to give good yield and good crops. Okay, so how do this nitrogen will be replenished in the soil? That is why it is recommended to sow legume plants soon after a crop plant, because crop plants will absorb all nitrogen and necessary nutrients from the soil, and for next crop that nutrients are not available in the soil. In order to get back that nutrients, we have to sow legume plants so that nitrogen fixation will happen, and that legume plants will increase the fertility of soil, so that we need not to depend on fertilizers every time, fertilizers and manures. The growing legume plants will reduce the dependency on manures and artificial fertilizers. Okay, so here also we can see symbiosis relationship, symbiotic relationship between rhizobium bacteria and plant. Plant will provide food for that bacteria, rhizobium bacteria, and in turn rhizobium bacteria will provide minerals and necessary nutrients for the plant. Nitrogen and other minerals for plants such as potassium and phosphorus is given in the form of fertilizers and manures. Fertilizers and manures are rich in these nutrients such as potassium, nitrogen and phosphorus. When these manures added to the soil will absorb this necessary nutrients. So this help plants to grow healthy and they give enough crop. Next, and also by observing some bacteria, as we studied some bacteria such as rhizobium, which helps in the nitrogen fixation. This is all about nutrition in plants. If you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe to my channel.